Hello and welcome to another edition of MetsMusings number 499. I hope you all had a great week out there and enjoyed our last show. We got a great one for you today, so don't go anywhere. Got an interview coming up that you're going to really enjoy. So stay right where you are. First, let's cover some news, some sad news coming across the wires right now as we start the podcast. Tim McCarver, the great catcher, two-time world champion, catcher with the St. Louis Cardinals, the Philadelphia Phillies, and announcer with the Mets and the Yankees and the Cardinals, has passed away at the age of 81. McCarver, of course, was here with the Mets for many years and with the Yankees, and then went on and was with Fox for many years, teaming up with Joe Buck. He called 13, I think it was, World Series, and Hall of Famer. And now he has left us, passing away at the age of 81. Our condolences go out to his family and friends. One guy we're still going to have around is Keith Hernandez. He has signed, according to reports, a 3-year contract with SNY. I believe last week we reported that he was in negotiations with them. Well, he has since settled those negotiations and signed a contract, so he will stay in the booth as part of the longest tenured broadcast trio in MLB history. He, of course, joins again with Ron Darling and Gary Cohen, GKR. So we will have Keith Hernandez back. Carlos Beltran is heading back to the Mets as a member of the team's front office. Beltran and the Mets have agreed that he will work as an assistant under general manager Billy Epler. Quite a move, as he was working for the Yankees last season, Carlos Beltran, but the Mets brought him back. As you remember, they had that little fiasco a few years back when he was hired as manager, and then stuff came up about Houston. They let him go. But now they are bringing him back into the fold as a special assistant to the general manager. So welcome back, Carlos Beltran. And this could be just the beginning of something a little different, maybe. Maybe they're looking, we could be Buck Showalter's successor somewhere down the road, for all we know. Gone, though, from the Mets organization is longtime executive Brian Alderson, who is no longer assistant general manager and is leaving the organization. The news comes after Epler recently added Carlos Beltran as a special assistant, and this should be the first move in what will be several hires of people with field experience. So the Mets are trying to get some of that field experience in their front office, as well as the front office guys. Mets will have 15 players joining the World Baseball Classic, and Team USA will have 4 of the Mets, and then they'll be split up among other teams. Lindor is playing for Puerto Rico. I don't know how some of the other guys are going about it, but 15 guys. Mets are going to have a lot of guys out of spring training and away, but they'll be playing baseball, so who knows, kind of undecided about this whole World Baseball Classic. It's pretty cool, but, 15 guys out. That's a lot of guys out. And be missing time with the team. But we'll see how it all works out. Outfielder Khalil Lee has been designated for assignment. I think we told you that last week. Well, he passed waivers. He has been, he remains with the Mets. They outrighted his contract to Syracuse. So though he still is in the organization, he's no longer on a 40-man roster. That's why they had designated him for assignment. So, you know, we knew it wasn't going to work out with Khalil, but he's still here. So, we'll see what happens down the road. He better play well this year, though, with this hanging over him. All right, let's take a break and come back with my special guest right after this.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like...
Right after this.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Did you know that Baseball PhD can be heard on BaseballTalkRadio.com?
Our shows rotate with other top baseball podcasts.
Now don't forget, that's BaseballTalkRadio.com.
With us, we'll help you get a PhD in life through baseball.
With BaseballTalkRadio.com, you'll hear the rest of the excellent universe of baseball podcasts.
Hello, baseball fans. You're listening to Baseball Talk Radio, the home of great baseball talk shows. At BaseballTalkRadio.com, you're going to find great shows like this one with the great Gary Mack and the MetsMusings podcast. And now back to the show.
Joining me this week is the new radio voice of the New York Mets, Mr. Keith Raad. Keith, welcome to MetsMusings.
Thank you, Gary. Good to see you.
Keith, so congratulations, by the way, on this great accomplishment of yours. And I was just wondering, when you got the phone call, what was your reaction? I mean, did you go nuts? Did you go crazy? It's like getting called to the major leagues, I guess, for an announcer. It is the major leagues, and you toiled hard for many years in the minors. So what was your reaction when you got the phone call?
Yeah, a lot of it was a little speechless in the very beginning when the Chris Olivero, who's the head of Odyssey, gave me the call, because I think exactly what you said. A lot goes into getting there. It's not just, hey, you applied for a job and they said, okay. There's a lot of blood, toil, sweat, and tears to get there. So getting the call that, hey, your dream is coming true, you have to freeze for a second and let it all sink in.
Yeah, and I imagine it was not a shock because you had been one of the top contenders, being in the Cyclone system and in the Mets system, so you had a feeling for the game and for the players. And you were with the Cyclones for 5 years, but before that, you kind of took a step backwards to come to the Cyclones. You were doing Double-A ball, and explain that to us.
Sure. So when you jump into it, you kind of have to learn which pathway is yours, and it's not always the same for everybody. You look at Gary Cohen, you look at Howie Rose, they got to the major leagues two different ways. So when I first started, I think the guidance I received was, try to jump up the ladder like the players do, A, high A, double A, triple A. And once I got to Double-A in Frisco, which is the Texas Rangers organization, amazing place. It's Disney World down there. I love my time. But by that time, I had done a couple of years, and I had kind of seen the writing on the wall of how I'd like to carve my own path. And it was right there where I decided, I think market is big because Frisco is right outside of the Dallas market. You have the Texas Rangers there. and there was a very good relationship between the Rangers and the Rough Riders. And my dream was always coming back to New York. So that was the move back to Brooklyn, taking it down a level as far as the level of play with short season, which is below A ball. It was certainly turned a few heads, but this right now, talking to you, Gary, about how we made it to the major leagues is kind of what I had in my head. I didn't know would actually come true.
And it all worked out in the end. And of course, it even worked out in Brooklyn because you got a nice championship out of it in 2019 when the Cyclones won I guess it's going to be the last New York Penn League championship. That must have been an exciting time.
Oh, it was phenomenal. Yeah, 2019, the last, we didn't know it at the time, but the last New York Penn League championship. Of course,
Yeah.
once that happened, the pandemic happened. Once that pandemic started, was right around the time that they reclassified the minor leagues, and we got the bump up, quote unquote, to
Right.
advanced A, high A. So, yeah, we were the last ever New York Penn League champions. Pretty funny.
And now, of course, you're moving on, and you're going to be working with one of the all-time greats, a Hall of Famer, Howie Rose, who I guess, I've got a couple years on Howie, but we are contemporaries. And I was thinking about this the other day. It's funny because, when Howie tells his stories about going as a kid to Shea Stadium and everything, and walking around and everything, I might have walked by him a dozen times and nobody knew. And same thing with Gary Cohen. But anyway, you're going to be working with the great Howie Rose, and how are you going to approach this? Just going to try to soak it all in like a sponge, or what?
Yeah, I mean, so part of the process was, of course, talking to Howie and getting his vibe and hoping that you mesh, because certainly they were looking for a new voice, but it's not just a new voice. It's kind of a new marriage, if you will. You need to be able to live with this person on the air for 3 hours a night and be able to compliment him. So I think that that's one of the things that he instilled in me, as far as the confidence of, he's got the history and the love of the fan base down pat. He lived through literally the beginning of the New York Mets. I was born in 1993. I didn't quite have the same pathway. So, but being able to bounce funny ideas off of him and just have a good time and be the young and the old guys on the air, I think that'll be hopefully a great package of entertainment for the Mets fans that'll be tuning in. But he's I will be a sponge is what I've said about it, because he is a Hall of Famer. Whatever he's done has worked. So why not try to do the same thing?
And I'm sure, have you had conversations with him so far about how you're going to split the time or anything along that line?
Yeah, so it's still his show. He's got 6 of the 9 innings of play-by-play on the radio. I'll jump in just like Wayne Randazzo did with innings 3, 4, and 7 of my own play-by-play. So when it's his innings, I'll be there for some analysis and adding some extra layers of commentary, where play-by-play only goes so far. Your brain only can watch so much. So I'll hope to fill in the gaps with that. Keep the 10-0 games exciting too with him. And then when he takes some games off, Pat McCarthy and I will kind of do the same thing, where I'll do the 6 and Pat will do the 3 when we go to California and places like that. So it's exciting.
Yeah, Howie will be on a limited travel schedule, and then that's kind of good though, because it kind of breaks you in and without getting everything thrown at you right away. Now, how are you going to work with spring training now? How do you prepare for that? Being that a good part of the team is going to leave before the games start really getting played down there. So how does that affect your preparation for the season?
Yeah, so spring training is a different beast. I'm told by some of the elder broadcasters, not just the guys with the Mets, but from my knowledge of some broadcasters in the big leagues, that spring training is flip-flops and sunglasses, and it's not too serious. So let's all take a chill pill and relax. But as far as what I can bring to the table during spring training, especially with the World Baseball Classic, as you mentioned, a lot of 40-man guys will be playing elsewhere, is that I know the minor leagues for the Mets. I know from the ground up a pretty good chunk of names that'll step into the box and get some big at bats in spring training. So I'm very excited for that. Not just for myself, that hey, I've heard of you kind of thing, even though maybe those have not heard of you yet. But it's for them, it's exciting, and for the guys that I know that I built relationships with, it'll be really exciting for them to get an opportunity. And that makes it interesting, not just for the guy at A-ball who's still not ready yet, but they give him a shot. But a lot of the guys that are potentially going to make the team that in years past may not have had as many opportunities, with a lot of Mets guys gone, they'll have big time opportunities to make a splash in front of Buck and Billy.
And yeah, exactly. And that'll help the careers down the line, even if they don't make the team this year. It'll might, as you say, wake them up and say, hey, we got to watch this guy as he goes through. Of course, you've working for the Cyclones, you've seen some of the guys that are in the ball team or about to make the ball team. Of course, you missed Alfonso, I think, Alonso, right? You came after him, but you saw Brett Batty down there and Francisco Alvarez and name some other guys that you might have seen. Maurizio, is he still there? When was he there?
Yeah, so
When you were
in
there?
2021 was the first year that the Cyclones went to high A, and for fans, that is really close. I mean, I consider it's the easiest way to explain it. It's the levels now of the minors. We were the sophomore year of high school. If graduation is making the majors, we're year 2 kind of thing, sophomore year. So our lineup that year in 21 was Brett Baty, Ronnie Mauricio, and Francisco Alvarez hitting 3, 4, 5 most nights, which is the future of the New York Mets. So I know Brett, I know Francisco. Ronnie's really close. He just destroyed winter ball this past offseason, so he's going to be coming in with a vengeance this year. But as far as the guys that are there already that were before Brett and Francisco, like Tyler McGill, it was my first season, 2018. Tyler just jumped into the rotation the last year or two. I know he was hurt last year, but he's a name that's been up there. But I just missed Pete Alonso. Michael Conforto was way back in 2014. I missed Nimmo, but this new wave, I think it's helpful for me to know some of the names that we're not talking about right now that will be there in 2, 3, 4 years from now.
And it should be a nice mesh because you can help Howie with that as he helps you with anything else you may need. So I think it'll be a great combination, and a lot of big shoes to fill. Walking into that booth, I mean, going back, I go all the way back to the Polo Ground, so I remember the original guys, Bob Murphy and Lindsey Nelson, of course, Ralph Kiner, and of course Howie Rose. But Howie is your connection back there. I mean, he worked with Bob Murphy, and Gary Cohen worked with Bob Murphy, so they're all kind of interconnected there. And I think you're going to have a good support team around you.
So Wayne Randazzo, who's been really helpful with me too, just giving me a call right before, I guess, the season and just after I got the job, to say, hey, you've got a great bevy of people. If you feel like, sort of the fundamentals of play-by-play, if you feel like, how do I approach this or how do I do that? He said, you've got Howie and you've got Gary Cohen, who are legends that can listen to an inning and give you feedback, or listen to a game and give you feedback. It'll be real-time live feedback with Howie, that's for sure, which I'm excited for. But those guys learned from the generation before them, and I hope to just, listen, I like to do a game first before I start thinking, hey, I could be part of this illustrious company. Let me just get a game in first. But yeah, it's hard not to think about it, Gary. It really is. But I that's why I walk into this with a super respect for what the booth has meant for Mets fans and the standard that has been set by these guys. I'm honored to be a part of it, but I've got a lot of work to do before I can really be a part of it.
Right. Well, you have to walk in with the idea that, hey, have that little bit of humility on the side too, to realize that I don't know everything, and boy, do I have an opportunity here with these guys, especially a Howie Rose and a Gary Cohen around, to pick their brains and to learn. And and I always say it's great to learn the history of the team that you root for. I know you're a Long Island guy and a Met fan. I live on Long Island too. So when will you be heading down to spring training?
So I'll go down the 22nd. Our first game, we just announced the schedule the other day. WCBS 880 will be on mostly Saturday and Sunday broadcasts in the spring. So I'll be down there the first week for a couple extra days, and then it's going to be a lot of in Friday, out Monday stuff, just getting ready to do the Saturday, Sunday broadcast, to get my feet wet with Howie and with Pat, and to just soak in the sun. I mean, in New York this week, it's Gary, I'm sweating here. It's in the 60s, so I'm hoping to do that a little more often in Florida.
Yeah, finally some nice weather. And usually around this time of year, it's crazy because I have a birthday coming up tomorrow, as a matter of
Okay.
fact.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I can remember as a kid, being snowed out. And as you say, today it's like 60 degrees. So I'd rather have this weather than when I was a kid. Yeah. and getting snowed out of a birthday party. But Keith, looking at the team as it's put together so far, what's your thoughts on the season? I know it's hard till you get down there, but just what the Mets did in the offseason. We hear now that Jacob deGrom may have some soreness in Texas, so maybe it wasn't such a bad let go, if you will, by the Mets. What's just your overall feeling quickly on this Mets team?
Yeah, so a lot of context with last year. I think they did a lot better than Mets fans expected. They held on to first place for a very long time until the very end. Hard to do. I mean, a bummer. You just win one of those games against Atlanta last year,
I
and
know.
you avoid San Diego. So certainly a bad taste in your mouth. The Buck Showalter, Joe Musgrove, pine tar on the ear moment, kind of sour at the time. But coming into this year, I mean, you hope that those veterans and the guys who are making the buco bucks can use it as a chip on their shoulder to play even better this year. The rotation is immaculate. You just hope that Max and Justin at 40. Listen, I'm 29. I can't say what my body's going to feel like at 40, but if they're doing it at 40, let's go. And then bullpen is shored up. I mean, the thing that Mets fans probably know, the nation probably doesn't know, is all of the free agents that were. It was a huge situation to deal with. Who do we re-sign? Who do we bring back? You almost lost half the team into free agency. So I think Billy Epler did a great job piecing it back together. And then the spending in the offseason, I know Steve Cohen, just from the minor league perspective, he wants to be able to build the minor leagues to be a feeder system like the Dodgers. He doesn't feel like it's there yet. So that's why he's spending all this money to get superstars. Exactly. So it's not a long-term, play for spending $500 million a year. I don't know, Gary, if you spend $500 million a year. I certainly haven't gotten to that point in my life yet. But for Steve, who's worth a lot of money, this is just for now, I think, is his plan. And then hoping that the minor leagues can help fill in the gaps. But to be honest, I think that they could win the World Series. I think pitching-wise, they'll be fine. But again, you never know with injuries. And what kind of offense will they get from Francisco Alvarez and Brett Beatty as maybe some extras? The lineup is solid. I think it could be pack a more of a punch. If Carlos Correa was part of that lineup, you'd be going, wow, this team is going to be unstoppable. Yep. And then you go, okay, he's not coming. Who else do we have? And it's a pretty darn good lineup. So, I mean, think about it. The rotation is pretty much set, pretty rare. Bullpen's good. Lineup is a lot of returners. Guys that won 101 games last year are back. Can't ask for better than that.
No, not at all. And I think I agree. And I think if they need punch, I think you'll see maybe a trade or an acquisition somewhere along the line during the course of the season. But going in, I think, as every Met fan should be, and there's some optimism there because of the 101 games won last year and the way the team performed. And as you said, it all comes down to health. If the pitches and most of the starters stay healthy, it should be a good year. And what a way for you to start with a 101 win team last year.
No pressure.
Well, I'm sure you'll do a great job, and I want to thank you for taking this time today. And we had a little technical difficulties in the beginning, and I do apologize for that. But I'm glad we could get this in, and I hope we can talk to you again. And I'd like to keep in touch during the season and have you on again as the season goes along. So, Keith, thank you so much, and congratulations once again on your promotion.
Thank you so much, Gary. And once again, let me be the first to wish you a very happy birthday in 2023.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll be back right after this. And hello, we're back, and I hope you enjoyed that interview with Keith Raad. Took a long time to get him on, but I'm certainly glad that we finally did, and it was well worth the wait. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, sad news today. Tim McCarver passed away at the age of 81, just coming across the wires as we were recording this interview. So very sad news. So rest in peace, and our condolences go to his family and friends. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will subscribe and like the show. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe and like button. It helps us to grow the show and to bring on new listeners and guests. And if you're listening to the audio version, also hit the subscribe button so you always know when a new edition of MetsMusings will be released. So until next time, remember to keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets. And we'll see you next time on another edition of MetsMusings.